Hey everybody, welcome back to Harmon Garage. I'm Aaron. In today's video, we are for sure test fitting the bed on Project Hotshot. My buddy told me he'll be over here this afternoon to do it, and I will film that, but in the meantime, there's a couple things I want to get done to it before I drive it outside to put the bed on, and I'm going to go ahead and film that for you. I got a little hack for front brake calipers when they're locking up, and I'm going to show it to you right now. So obviously this is really dirty, so I'm just going to take and clean up around this bleeder screw. And then I'm also going to clean up around where the rubber brake line connects to the caliper. That looks pretty good. Okay, so a little explanation of what I'm doing here. A lot of people think when the calipers start locking up in the front, they just automatically assume that the caliper's bad, which not always the case. I've done this a lot of times, and it usually fixes the problem, but in my experience, if the caliper's not leaking, like the seal's not bad and it's leaking out like dripping brake fluid, you can tell it's leaking, the caliper's not bad, because that's about the only thing that can go bad on a caliper, unless it's rusted up inside there and it won't allow the piston to move. Now I know that's not the case on this one, because if I go out and start to drive it and step on the brakes will work good, but then I go to take off again and they're locked up and they just drag the tires. But then I let it sit for a little while, and I can go and put it in gear and it'll drive off again just fine without dragging the brakes. So that tells me that this rubber line up here, when they sit for a long time without getting used, the brake fluid just sits in them and it starts eating away at the inside of the rubber hose, and then it sends the broken off pieces of rubber down into the caliper, but it also makes the inside of this hose like swell shut. So when you step on the brake pedal and have a big surge of pressure come through, it opens that up enough to let fluid come through, and then it closes back off again, so the fluid can't go back up to the master cylinder. So what I do is, anytime I get one of these old trucks that's been sitting for a while, first thing I do is replace brake hoses. I don't even check them, I don't question it, I just automatically replace them. But since these brakes are already locking up and I know it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this bleeder screw out, I'm going to disconnect this rubber hose down here, and then I'm going to take brake parts cleaner. I got a drain pan down here, you guys probably can't see it in the view, but I'm going to take brake parts cleaner and I'm going to spray it into where the bleeder screw goes with the hose disconnected and just let it flush that caliper out. I'll probably spray a whole can, if not two, through the caliper and just let it keep flushing and flushing and flushing until all the brake fluid's out, and I got nothing but clear brake parts cleaner coming back out. So I'm going to go ahead and get that line off. I'll get this bleeder screw out and then we'll start flushing this caliper. Okay, I got my line disconnected, I got my bleeder pulled out, It's right here. So now I'm just going to take a can of brake parts cleaner and put the little straw on it. I'm just going to go in here where the bleeder screw goes and just start filling this caliper up and just letting it flush out. I see a lot of really dirty brake fluid coming out of it. And I'm just going to keep flushing it. Alright, I got pretty much just clean brake fluid coming out now, so that means I got everything in there flushed through. And my rotor spins really free, so I know it's not hung up. Now I'm going to take my bleeder screw and I'm going to kind of spray from the little holes here. I'm going to spray in there so it cleans all that dirt and stuff out of the end, hopefully. And then we're going to just go ahead and flush this out, clean it up so we can reuse it. Alright, that's flowing good. I'm going to leave that out for now because I want to leave this open to the air so it can dry all that brake cleaner that I sprayed in there out of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and come over here, and you got a bolt with a nut that holds this little bracket on the hose, and then you get up here against the frame, and on the back side of the frame is where the brake line connects. You undo that, and then there's a little like sheet metal nut that takes a 15/16 wrench or socket that actually holds the brake line into the frame rail. So it's going to be hard to try to get a camera up there to where you take the brake line off, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I'll try to get in there and show you what it looks like at least, but it's a pain in the butt, and I'm probably not going to be in a good mood while I'm doing it, so I'll save you guys the hassle of all the beeps in the video, and I'll just get it done. Okay, so for everybody that's not familiar with what I'm talking about, replacing this line in here. I can't tell. Okay, right there is where the line comes through. The hose comes through, and then the line, this flashlight's killing it. Okay, you see the line there dripping? That goes over and screws into that. And then this little sheet metal nut right here is what holds that hose in. So there's not a lot of room to get tools up in there. That line is kind of bent over itself where you have to get in there to break the line loose. Once you get the line loose and get it out of the way, usually the nuts on the hose aren't that bad, but sometimes they can be. This one wasn't bad. I got it apart, so now we're going to start going back together with it. Okay, I kind of got you guys in the same area I need to be in, so I'm going to do my best here. But this is our brake hose where it goes through the frame. Let's grab it to bust the dirt loose and take it off. Now if you look down inside there, you see all that garbage and gunk. Hope you can see that. That's all that rubber from that hose coming apart. So got that out. The hose is all cracked and dry rotted and crap, so got a solution to that problem. I got new hoses for both sides. Like I said in the last video on this truck, I replaced the one in the rear when I fixed that rear brake line, so it's done. Now I just need to line these up and make sure I got the right one for the right side. And then should have the cutout in the frame is a hexagon or an octagon or one of them gons. It's a gon. So anyways, you get this in here, you want to make sure that your bracket's going to be facing the right direction. I always go ahead and put my bracket in first, and that way I know it's where it needs to be. And then I'll grab my hose and take it over here and kind of spin it to where it's not bunched up, but it gets in to the groove it needs to be in. Kind of like that. And then we'll take this and run it down here, which I'm going to clean that up a little better before I put a line back on it. Okay, then I got these bolts that hold the line to the caliper. They've got a hole right there and a hole in the end, and that's where the fluid transfers through them. So I'm going to go ahead and blow this out just like I did that bleeder. Make sure it doesn't have any of the rubber contaminants in it or anything like that, and that we're clean and clear. So we got that all cleaned out. And then 90% of the time, when you buy new brake hoses, they give you these new copper washers to go with them, which they did this time too. So I'll just open this up. So one copper washer goes on your bolt. Your bolt goes through this block in the end of the brake hose, and then another copper washer goes between that block and the caliper. You want to make sure when you put that banjo bolt back in there, which is what that little bolt I just showed you is called, that you get it good and tight, because you want it to crush into those copper washers. So I got the new hose replaced, I got my caliper flushed out, so all we should have left to do is bleed the brakes and we should be in good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and put my sheet metal nut back on to hold the hose. I'll put my brake line back in, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, and then this project will be done. Alright, as you saw in the time lapse, my buddy had some free time, made it over with his tractor, and we got the bed set on the old hotshot. And man, It's exactly what I was looking for. Now, I'm gonna show it to you, but it's not lined up yet. It still has to come further forward, and it's sitting on there kind of crooked, but it looks awesome. So, there she is. Got to put some new bushings in the back of the cab. It's sloped down a little bit. I think I mentioned that before. I'll raise that up. Gotta move the bed forward so the wheels are centered. And gotta do some more cleaning on it. But drove it out of the shop, back in the shop and everything. Drive shaft's great. Brakes are great. Exhaust sounds great. Sounds even better outside when it's not echoing. So next thing we're gonna do is get that bed squared up where it needs to be. Then we're gonna start figuring out our mounts. All right, everybody, it's a new day, new week. I'm back here on hotshot, got the bed on. I still have to square it up, put it where it needs to be, which I haven't quite figured out how I'm gonna do yet because it's kind of heavy and awkward, but we'll figure it out. Made my day again walking in here this morning and seeing this thing. I just think it looks cool. I was talking to my buddy that owns a truck when he came over and helped me put the bed on the other day, and there's a couple changes we want to make to the bed. One thing is we're going to take these rails off. They're kind of old and dented and beat up and whatnot, and we actually think it'll look better without them, so we're just going to take them off. And then another thing we want to do is this trailer hitch, which I needed to rebuild anyways because I don't like it, is awful close to the ground. So it's got this door back here, which is basically rendered useless in my opinion. So when I rebuild, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this door off, and I'm going to mark the inside of this onto this door, and I'm going to cut it out so it fits, and then I'm going to weld it up and we'll body work it so you can never tell there was a door there. And then up here where this handle is, we're going to put the hitch in here where the handle was, and then I'll just kind of body work that a little bit to make it look right. But we're going to take this down here, move it up here, make this fit in the bed so it looks like it's just one piece and not a door there. And yeah, so I think the first thing I'm going to do, to not going to help much, but shed a little bit of weight off of this bed, I'm going to take those rails off and I'm going to pull this back door off so we can start getting ready with it. And then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to move this thing around by myself to adjust it. I know I can't pick it up. I'm hoping I can kind of wiggle it and push it and move it. Maybe I can put a jack under the back, take some weight off of it, and it'll help me slide the front. Not quite sure, but we're going to figure it out. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these rails off. This back door is welded on, so I'm gonna have to cut it off. So we're gonna get going. All right, so these rails are just for looks. So they just got little like 3/4 inch self-tapping screws in them. I already pulled the one off the other side. It came off pretty easy. Now I decided to film this side, and this one's gonna fight me. I'm really surprised they're actually coming out. I thought for sure these screws were going to be rusted in here. But so far so good. my screwdriver. That's awesome. Kind of sad about that screwdriver. I've had that thing for a long time, and I don't have a snap-on guy or know of anyone around here to get it fixed. So I guess I'm just out that screwdriver now. There we go. 12 screws. I broke off one. Not too bad. Now we're going to go ahead and get that back door cut off, and then we're going to get this bed squared up where it needs to be so we can start making mounts for it. Okay, I started looking at this back door here to see how it's held on, and it's welded. The hinge is welded really stout to the door itself, but it looks like it's just riveted to the bed. I pried on it a little bit, and it's kind of coming down and popping some rivets. So I think I'm just going to take and see if I can pop the rivets loose and knock this door off. Maybe it's welded there too. So it is the way it's welded, it's not easy to get in there. So I'm gonna get a bigger pry bar and see if I can just break it off. And if this one's not big enough, I got bigger ones. We'll get it off. Alright, well now we at least got it down low enough where I can go back and cut the top part off the hinge. As easy as this thing's ripping, that piano hinge would have been garbage anyways, and it didn't move very free. So I wasn't worried about ruining it. I'm still not. Now I can go back and just trim that real quick and it'll come off easy. Alright, that's off. I'll have to clean that up good and clean this up good, but it's no big deal. While I'm over here, I think I'm going to go ahead and cut off some of this hitch since I'm here and I got the grinder set up already. So we'll just knock that out real quick. Alright, we got that off. I'm going to have to look and see how this hitch is welded on and see if I'm going to reuse this insert or if I'm going to get a new one. So, you guys can't even see what I'm talking about down here. I'm going to have to get underneath and look at the backside and see how much they got it welded. There's welds here, welds here, welds here. There's a lot of welds on it. I may be able to cut it off and reuse it, but I may just hack it off and get a new one. So we'll see. But I'm going to move the hitch up on top of this rail, and then I'm going to bring tie pieces down from the frame to support it and off the bed to support it. So it'll be a lot stronger than it was with just this here and this cross brace. I'm sure it worked. I'm sure they used it, but I'm not content with it, so I'm not going to use it. So I'm going to clean up over here a little bit and get this thing up on jack stands, get the back wheels off, and then we'll start squaring this bed up. Okay, so I just wiggled the bed a little bit after I got it jacked up and got the tires off. And it's really not that hard to move. I guess because it's just sitting on those rails and whatnot, it's moving pretty easy. So I'm going to try to wiggle it into place. It needs to come forward a decent amount, probably about 2 inches. And then I need to square it up. So I'm going to go ahead and see what I can do and kind of get it where we need to get it. I think I got it forward far enough, and it looks like I'm centered left to right. So I'm going to measure here and go measure the other side and make sure I got the same distance. got it the same distance back from the cab. I like the distance here. I want to have a little bit of a gap because that bed can flex separate from the cab, and I don't want the bed to hit the cab. So I've got roughly 3 inches. It looks good, and I don't have to worry about it hitting. So I think we're going to leave that there. So I just need to make sure I'm still even left to right, and then we need to go back in the back and make sure we're square back there. Trying to move all this stuff around. We're probably going to go back and forth and adjust the same spot 6 or 7 times, because every time you move something, it's going to move everything else. So we're going to have to keep tweaking it, because there's not any way to really secure a spot until everything's moved, because you need that freedom of movement. So like I just moved that and got my depth right, but now I'm off maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe a little less, side to side. So I know it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but I mean, within a 1/4 inch, you're probably not going to be able to tell, but I'll know, and it's going to bug me if I don't fix it. So I'm going to go ahead and try to bump it back over just a little. That looks right where it needs to be. My rails on the bed and my rails I welded on the frame are the same width, so that's what I'm looking at. I can make sure that they're even on the sides, and that's going to get me where I need to be. I'll go back and measure this again. It's still right where I left it over here. And it's right where I left it over there too. So we got our front where it needs to be. Almost perfect. Now we're gonna go and check the back and make sure it's where it needs to be. Then once it is, we'll start making motor mounts. Yeah, we're gonna make motor mounts for the bed. We're gonna start making the bed mounts, because my goal for this today and this video is to get the bed mounted. So I'm going to check the back and make sure it's squared up kind of the same way I did the front, and once I get everything square, then we'll start making mounts for it. Alright, so I've measured and moved and measured and moved and measured and moved, and I've come to the conclusion this bed is tweaked. I knew it was off a little bit because when I set it flat on the frame, the one side sets down all the way and the other side's up a little bit. It can kind of rock. But measuring outside of axle to outside of fender on both sides, I'm off by like 3/4 inch, and back here in the back's off a little bit, but I got the front perfect. If you look, that gooseneck ball should be centered, and it's pretty well centered with that welded line down the middle. And I don't know if you guys can see the indents in the back of the cab. Let's see if I can get you closer. This indent right here, or part that's sticking out, is the center. The center of that's the center of the cab. And that's pretty well lined up with my weld, which is pretty well center. It is, I measured it center of the bed. So I measured here. That's right. I checked my window opening gap there. That's the same on both sides. And here. And my distance is the same on both sides. So I got the front perfect. So what I think I'm going to do is make my mounts for the front, get it tight, and then I can use a come along or ratchet strap or tractor or something, kind of tweak the back of the bed over to where I need it, and then I'll make my mounts for back there. I'm not solid mounting the bed. I'm gonna make it so it bolts on and off. For one thing, I have to take it back off to finish up work on everything, and to paint it. So I want it to be removable, so I'm gonna make mounts that go on there, and we're gonna make the front mounts right now. A lot of this stuff ends up being a lot more work than you expected it to be, especially when you got an old, well-used truck and an old, well-used bed that worked together before, and you're trying to make them go together now. So when this bed was made, I'm assuming these rails were supposed to be put together and, you know, be the same width. Same with this truck frame. Well, the width of the outside of these rails and the width of the outside of my frame are the same. But when I've got this bed squared up on the truck, I've got about a 1/4 of an inch gap on this side. And that side over there is hanging off about a 1/4 of an inch. So these rails either didn't get put on right originally, or stuff's moved over the years, but they're off a little bit, which is going to make putting the mounts on a little bit difficult, but it's not terribly bad. We'll get through it. So I'm going to measure the distance I need to make my mount. So I want to go at least halfway up this channel, which is 4 inch. So I want to go up about 2 inches, and that's where I want to have my holes that I'm mounting my bracket on with. And then I want to come all the way down and have my hole in the frame, not in the C channel that I put on there to block it up. So, sorry guys, it's kind of dark under here. I'm trying to keep light so you can see what I'm doing. So if we come down about an inch there, we're going to want our bolt hole about 9 inches down. So we're going to make our overall piece. What am I doing here? So I want my hole centered there, and my hole centered right there. So my overall piece is going to be 11 inches. And then we're going to make it probably 3 inches wide. So, and then what I'm going to do, since I got this step here, is I'll make my piece straight, bring it down, drill what I need to drill, and then on this side I'm going to have to put a spacer between the bed and my mount, and on that side I'm going to have to put a spacer between the framing on the bed and my mount. So I'll have to put a spacer down here on this side and a spacer up here on that side, which is really no big deal. But enough talking about it, let's do it. Alright, since metal's so expensive right now and I'm cheap, I'm going to take this section of frame rail again that I cut out of the truck, and I'm going to use it to make my mounts. And it actually works out pretty good because it's 1/4 inch thick. It's just good solid steel. So I'm going to go ahead and make a mark here. It's going to be my 11 inches. and then I'm gonna take the curve out of it, so I'll mark it right about there and right about there. And then I'm gonna need 6 inches of this, so I'll mark it right there and right there. So that'll get me what I need there. I'm gonna grab a square and mark this out, and then we'll get to cutting it and move on. Alright, I brought my pieces over here to the fab shop. I'm just going to take them on the belt sander here and kind of round the edges a little and clean them up a little bit. This ain't going to be a show truck. It's a work truck, so these things don't have to look perfect. But I want them to not be sharp and look halfway decent. So we're just going to clean them up just a little bit. Alright, we got these cleaned up as good as we need to. Now I'm going to take and measure them and punch some holes in them, and then we can take them back over there, put them where they're going to go, and we'll mark the frame and the rails on the bed, and we'll drill those also, and then we will get some bolts and bolt these on. Alright, I got both my brackets for the front cut, cleaned up, and drilled out to 3/4. Now I'm going to take that and put it up there, mark it, and then I'll drill the holes in the bed and the frame, which is going to be a little difficult to get to and pretty hard to drill. I'm going all the way out to 3/4 because I want to make sure I got a good solid bolt in there to hold this thing on. So I'm going to get under there and mark and start drilling. And why don't you guys go take a chip and soda break, and I'll bring you back when I get her done. Alright, so I got my front mount on this side done. I changed my mind halfway through and decided to weld the mount to the bed, and then I'll bolt it to the frame. So I got good weld all the way up there on that, and welded up the hole in the center that I had already cut in it also. And then we got our 3/4 inch bolt with a lock nut on the back on the bottom. So to do the other side in the same spot, I have to drop the fuel tank back down. That's going to take a little bit of time, and I want to keep going with this to show you guys what we got going on. So I'm going to go ahead and move to the back mount, which will be a little bit easier to show you guys because I got a big wheel opening where I can get in there. So what I'm going to do back here is I want to make my mount kind of up here about where the fifth wheel plate is. That way we got strength, or the gooseneck I mean, that way we got strength right where the gooseneck is, which is all the way up here. I'm going to go a little bit further back, like right here, and that way we got strength where the gooseneck is. And then when I build the hitch in the back, I'm going to tie the hitch into the bed and the frame. So it'll be bolted to the bottom of the frame, and then it'll be all welded up to the back of the bed back there. So by doing that, I'll have a good solid hitch, and I'll have another mounting point for the bed. So I'll have one in the front, one in the center, and one in the back on each side. So that's the plan. I'm going to go ahead and I'm not going to show you guys making the brackets again because it's the same process as I did for the front, but I'll show you guys the stuff that you didn't see from the front, like drilling the holes in the frame and welding the brackets onto the bed. So I'm gonna get started. Alright guys, sorry if you can't see real well, but there's not enough room for me, you, and a light in this wheel well, so I'm gonna try to show you the best I can. So I got my bracket all made up, and I marked my spot on my frame rail right there where I want to put it. So I'm just going to drill a little pilot hole. I think, if I can find a drill bit that cuts. Yeah, that one's not cutting. Alright, let's try another one. Knowing the drill bits that I have, good chance this one ain't gonna cut either. Alright, there we go. Got our pilot hole. Now I'm going to move up to a 1/2 inch because it's the biggest regular drill bit I got. I'll walk that one through the same way. Usually not this hard on drill bits, but they're all junk and I haven't been able to get no new ones lately, so gotta push a little harder. Alright, now I'm going up to a step bit, which aren't ideal for cutting through frames because of the short steps aren't long enough, but you just gotta take it easy and let it do its thing, and it should eventually go through, hopefully. Alright, now we got our hole. Right there. So I'm going to take my, first I'm going to measure, because this is sticking out a little bit past the frame. I measured and measured and measured and measured, and this bed is, I don't know if it wasn't built straight, because the sides are straight, and they're straight with the truck, and it's side to side's okay, but I think these rails were welded in off or something happened. I don't know if it was built for a different kind of truck that the rails spread out in the back or what, but the brackets that I cut off of it were a little wonky looking too, so I'm not sure, but either way, it looks good on the truck. We're gonna make it fit. I'm gonna go find something to put in there to use as a shim when I put my bolt in to shim that out, and then we'll mark this, clean it up, and we'll weld our mount on. All right. I just got some 3/4 inch flat washers that are enough to fill in that gap. Before we put the bed completely back on, on permanently, I'm going to build something out here that fits tight against, but I'm just using washers for right now, just to get it all fitted, and then once I pull it back off, I'll just measure how many washers I got in there, and I'll make something that welds in there that's perfect. Okay, got that started. Just got a regular Sharpie marker here. I'm going to make that pretty straight. Trace around the outside of the top. Now I'm going to take my grinder with a flapper wheel and just clean that up. The sides of this are already cleaned up from the belt sander over there. And then I'll rotate this back up. Our metal will all be clean, and I'll just take and weld it all the way around. So I'm going to get stuff cleaned up, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what we got going. Alright, I got this cleaned up, got it ready to weld, so I'm just going to go ahead and run a bead on it real quick. Alright, got that welded in there. All I got left to do on this one is tighten down the bolt. And this side of the bed's completely mounted. So I'll tighten that bolt up real quick, and then we'll move on. We got the bed set on. I got 3 of the 4 mounts in. Got both ones done on the passenger side, the rear one on the driver's side, and I got to drop that tank to do the front one on the driver's side, but haven't decided yet. No, I got to drop the tank, put that mount on, but that's about it for mounting the bed. I mean, we got it on, got it squared up, got some mounts made. Like I said, the third set of mounts on the bed will be part of the hitch in the back. So it's looking pretty good. What do you guys think? This bed was way out of whack as far as the way it mounts. I mean, the bed itself is straight. It looks good. It's squared up on the truck okay. But when it came to mounting it to the truck frame rail, I probably spent an hour and a half measuring, questioning myself on the truck frame and everything else. And I measured and measured and measured, and the truck frame came out fine. And I had the bed square with the front of the frame. So the bed itself is a little wonky underneath, but that's okay because we're still able to make it work. And it looks darn good. All the way around, man. I just can't. Never put one of these beds on a square body before. And I wish I would have because it looks pretty darn good. So, but anyways, bed's fitted, bed's pretty much mounted, and that's what I wanted to do in this video. So we're gonna end this video here. Appreciate everybody for subscribing and watching. You guys have no idea what it means to me. I didn't know if I was gonna be able to make this YouTube thing work or not, and I can't necessarily say that I have, but the channel's growing faster right now than it ever has, and I'm really happy about it, and I appreciate all you guys for watching and subscribing. Leave me a comment. Let me know you're here. Hit the like button. Share it, you know. Tell other people about me. I appreciate that too. But that's going to do it for this video. Y'all have a good one, and we'll see you next time.